Minister, I understand you're sharing time with Deputies McAuliffe and Devlin.
Yes, I am indeed, Ceann Corla, 9 minutes 3 and 3. And I will look into that matter, actually close to where I was today in Adamstown. I saw some fantastic work that has taken place and continues to, and in other parts of South Dublin, like in Killinarden, where your own party actually opposed 300 social or 100 social homes and 300 affordable homes in that area as part of another LIHAF scheme. So I will be happy, though, and I will be reviewing how LIHAF works as well. But I think delivery on the ground is what's crucially important. I do thank the Deputy for bringing forward the bill and providing us with an opportunity to discuss the residential rental sector and as it stands in Ireland today. I won't be supporting the bill because I don't believe that banning rent increases is the solution to the current housing supply crisis that we face. I also note with concern that Deputy O'Brien did not avail of the services of the parliamentary legal advisers, and that this bill you produced today is a retweaked version of the Sinn Féin Rent Freeze Fair Rent Bill 2019. And in opposition, I debated that bill here in the House whilst I was on that side of the House, and I stated during that debate on the bill that I was willing to allow it to proceed to pre-legislative scrutiny, to give it the opportunity to tease out the ramifications, for example, the constitutionality or otherwise of the bill, and its potential impact in particular on supply across the country and not just within the rent pressure zones. Now, it is not clear to me that Sinn Féin has made any attempt to ensure that this bill is legally sound or whether, as a base requirement, it is in fact constitutional. I suspect that you have not, and I suspect that they have not researched the potential impacts of this bill. Sinn Féin do not seem to accept that a ban on rent increases is not going to increase the supply of rental accommodation. Supply is a key constraint. Rents rise when demand outstrips supply. And if you had sought the assistance of the parliamentary legal advisers available to you to draft the bill, you would know this. I think we do furthermore need to note that in the North, where Sinn Féin are in power, in February this year, your own Communities Minister actually announced an increase in rents in one of the first acts of the Executive after its 3-year hiatus. And at the 11th hour, that same Communities Minister decided to defer the increase, but it will actually come into effect in a short 13 days' time. So one rule in the North, one rule in the South, like I've mentioned about Killinarden. Since taking office, I sought to quickly assist tenants. COVID-19 has not been easy for renters or indeed private landlords. And in my first month in office, I sought to act not just on rent increases, but on tenancy terminations also. I sought to help those most in need of help on foot of COVID-19, those facing potential homelessness on foot of tenancy termination caused by rent arrears. And your bill here this evening makes no reference to terminations or evictions, incredibly. It is my belief, it was my belief in opposition, it is my belief now in government that we need to strike a balance between restricting the level of rents tenants are paying and keeping ordinary landlords in the system. And as Deputy O'Brien has rightly said this evening, if we look at the RTB data, we've lost nearly 7,700 tenancies year on year to Q1 2020. And this is a significant number that must be kept in check. And it is worth remembering, colleagues, that 70% of landlords own just one rental property, and 86% of landlords own 1 or 2 rental properties. These measures, whilst well-intentioned possibly, will drive more decent landlords out of the market, reducing supply and exacerbating the problem further. The simple fact of the matter is that we do need residential rental accommodation. We have a well-regulated sector and rental properties need to be maintained. It's not in the interest of a landlord to mistreat a tenant, and any landlord who does should be and is indeed liable to stern prosecution with sanctions of up to €30,000 for those who breach RPZ rent guidelines. I believe that if we were to introduce a ban on rent increases, we would see more exits from the sector, thus stifling that much needed supply and causing an even greater problem in the sector. I do think, Deputy, that you know that too, but the truth of that doesn't suit your narrative. The temporary prohibition on rent increases and terminations under the Public Health and Public Interest Act 2020 expired on the 1st of August. Sinn Féin response was a blanket ban on all rent increases. Government recognises this is not possible and introduced measures targeted at those most in need, which I have just covered. So if we examine the two different approaches, we see that the Sinn Féin bill in section 2 proposes to ban increases in rent for existing and new tenancies for 3 years from enactment. No mention of evictions, no mention of COVID, no mention of rent freezes for those who need it most. The government's response is more comprehensive and targeted and based on real independent research and advice. We have commissioned, as the Deputy has referred to himself, ESRI research, trends in rental price inflation and introduction of rent pressure zones in Ireland as part of the Rent Index series, the RTB and indeed the ESRI. We asked to produce a short-run index covering the period January to June this year. The key findings from that report show rental price inflation has moderated considerably since the pandemic began. National month-on-month declines were registered in 3 of the 4 months since March this year. Rents in Dublin fell year on year to April, May and June, and rent inflation outside Dublin also dropped shortly. Tenancy registrations with the RTB are also markedly down. Furthermore, my department commissioned from the ESRI a research paper exploring the short-run implications of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on the private rental market. And that report showed a very marginal increase in rent arrears and a stabilisation of tenancies, coupled with the fact that this government brought in the emergency rent supplement. And I would urge people, anyone who is watching and who is in difficulty in rent arrears or paying their rent, to avail of that emergency rent supplement, which is there. Deputy, you might wish to share with us the findings of any independent research that you and your party commissioned in the production of this bill, and I would genuinely be interested in examining it in future to see the research that's behind this bill and the ramifications of a blanket ban in relation to the supply in the market. The bill that you presented focuses solely on rent increases. There's no measures to address tenancy terminations or indeed the impact of COVID-19. And before the summer recess, with the support of my government colleagues and acting on evidence through the ESRI research, I introduced significant tenancy protections in the Residential Tenancies and Valuation Act 2020, which protects those who need it most from eviction, bans rent increases for those who need it as well. Your party and you voted against those protections. And not only did you do that, you tried to convolute it further and make it harder for those who were to be protected. You, Deputy O'Brien, wanted people to have to declare themselves homeless, rather than a simple declaration that they have been economically impacted by COVID-19. Deputy Carthy went on radio and in the Dáil here and actually suggested that we follow the lead of President Trump and make people jump through multiple hoops before they would be afforded any protections. Instead, and in recognition of the fact that COVID-19 has been hard on tenants and indeed individual landlords, I put in place much more targeted protections that protect the most vulnerable tenants whilst allowing the rental sector to resume activity in as near a normal a manner as possible. That is the responsible and correct thing to do. Any notice of termination grounded on rent arrears will be invalid if the warning notice has not been served to both the RTB and the tenant. Anyone who self-declares that their income and their rent has been affected by and their ability to pay rent has been affected by COVID-19 will be protected. These are real protections, these are lawful protections, they're implementable protections which have been implemented and they are actually working. A core principle of the government is that everyone should have access to good quality housing, to purchase or rent at affordable price in sustainable communities that offer a quality of life. This is what we need to deliver, and the key to resolving the residential rental sector is indeed supply. And that's why in the budget of 2020 that you alluded to, social housing delivery increased to 2.63 billion, €258 million more than 2019. And even in this year of COVID, where we've had a shutdown, we will deliver over 10,000 social housing units, and we are pushing every single week to ensure that public house building is delivered here through our partners in the AHB and through our local authorities. We are interested in real delivery of real protections for tenants from evictions, the bill that you and your party and others voted against, real delivery of extra homes through the most ambitious Voids programme that we have seen in a number of years, of bringing back 2,500 social homes into use this year through the July stimulus plan. Real delivery to empower local authorities to build themselves by raising the discretionary cap to 6 million. That is done already. Real delivery to help those people that you say you want to help buy homes by increasing the Help to Buy grant to €30,000. 19,500 people have availed of that grant, and you oppose it. And you've publicly opposed it, and you've opposed it in the budget. You've opposed affordable housing in this House as well. So real delivery is also the call for housing that this government brought forward, to focus on single properties and large properties, to drive down homelessness for those who've been homeless for far too long. And we're going to keep working on that, and we're going to deliver as a government in this area. We're ambitious for this country in resolving our housing crisis. This bill will not help, Deputy, and I say that respectfully. I think you actually know that, and that's why we're opposing it.